In this video, we're going to create a Chrome plugin and then fill out a couple forms after we query an API. The first thing we're going to show is that basically we have this Hello World website with two pretty easy forms. They're basically the same except for the HTML behind the scenes is different. We'll get into that a little bit later. And then we have this really easy API, just returns the next two values. No matter what numbers you send in, it just grabs them and sends the next two values. So as long as it's an integer, it'll work here for our demonstration. So what we're actually going to do, if you've never seen a Chrome plugin before, is we're going to use a file system generally like this, where we have this manifest.json, we have the index, and then we add in some JavaScript after that just to give it our actions, and I'll explain that to you in just a second. So the problem that we're working on today was given to me by my friend Matt, and he wanted to automate filling out the fields of form, but he wanted to fill out like a similar field on multiple forms for different websites, but he wanted to do it all with one automation. So that's the problem we're working through today. The first thing here is you need a JSON file like this. I'll have some links down in the description. I'll also share this repo with you guys once I get it out there. So I'll have links for all these files. You can grab them from there if you want them. But I'm just going to walk through quickly what this is, and then we can start getting into the code. So the manifest file just basically gives the title for the plugin, gives a description. You can give a home page. This one technically doesn't exist yet, but it doesn't really matter. It makes the plugin work, so I just filled it out. Here for the browser action, you give it the title that you want it to show on the screen, and then you also tell it which HTML file that you wanted to kick off, because basically it'll just serve up that HTML as your plugin in a little window on the side. And then you have some permissions here. So there's nothing too special in here. We're never going to look at this manifest again. So the next thing is the index. In the index, we just have a basic style that gives our plugin height and width. And then I just have an H1 here to show you that this is just regular HTML. This just makes it look a little bit nicer than just a blank box and a button. But we're basically gonna put a button with an input on the screen so that we can pass a value. We're gonna have a button that we can click on, and then we have an action JavaScript that's going to take this click from the button. So the way that these plugins are set up, they have permissions where you can't actually do anything inside your JavaScript. So this action.json, it really doesn't have permission to do much of anything, but all I'm going to use is I'm going to use that to fire off a script that we're going to inject into the actual page that we're working with. Basically, all this says is when I click a button, I grab the text from the value that I put on my screen. I make it available to this injector script that we're going to look at, and then I run the script that's called injector.js. This could be any path or any script, but this is just what we're going to use here. So on the injector.js, we really don't do too much here. You can almost ignore the code, but all this is doing is making a call to my API right here. And since we're passing that value right here, var value, imagine this is this line up here. I'll just take it over here and comment it out so you can see it. But basically, this is just at the top of it for us here. So that's getting passed in from the index, or sorry, from the action.js. So then I'm doing some things with cores just because my website requires it. You may or may not need to do that. I have an example here of what it would look like without cores, but none of that really matters. And then, so basically, if our response is good, we return our response as a JSON object. Else we're just going to reject it and kind of throw a console warning here. Otherwise, what we're going to do is we're going to log this, and we're also going to fill out the form. So the way that we're filling out the form is we're taking that data from our JSON response, And then I'm going to locate the fields. So I'm using native JavaScript with the query selectors. So if you're not familiar with that, let me pull up this page. I'm going to hit F12 to go to developer tools. And so if we click on this arrow with a box, you can click over a field and it'll show you what that looks like. So this is an input with a type of text and a name of full name. So if we come back over here, we have input name equals full name. So that gives us our first field, and then we're just taking the first value out of data, and it's zero based. So that's the first value is 0, the next value is 1, and the last value is 2. So we have two different forms here. So one form has input full name, input email. And let me flip over to the other form here. So first I'll just show you the next box is email, and the last box here is city. If we flip over here and grab these fields, so this actually has an idea field 1. This has ARIA label of field 2. And this has class of field 3. So I wanted this to work with multiple pages and not throw errors all over the place if elements didn't exist, because you never know what people are going to do on multiple pages. And we're here to help out my friend Matt. So what we had to do here is make it so that we had to check to see if a field exists, and if it does exist, then we fill out that value. It should work pretty well with any website. All you have to know is what your selector is. And then once you know your selector, you can kind of just pass it through this fill field function that'll take out the repetition of logic for you. So this should fill out my form 1 here, and these should fill out my form 2. And I'm going to tell you right now that doing something like this with input on classes is probably terrible, and you probably shouldn't do it. But I'm just showing that that's a way that you can select items here. So let's take a look at how you would actually run this plugin. So if I pull up this page right now, if I close this and go to the plugin window here, or in settings, I'm going to click on extensions, and we want to go to developer mode up here. So you might have this off or on, but all you have to do is select it on, and then we're gonna load an unpacked extension, and basically this is gonna pick my folder. I'm just gonna show you here that this is the same folder, this extension source folder. So I'm just gonna select that folder. It found my files, and now it should be loaded. Okay, so we're gonna start using the plugin. First, I'm gonna hit F12 to open the debug tools, just so you can see what's going on here. Then I'm going to open extensions and click on test form filter. And first thing I'm going to do is just right click and inspect this to show you that I wasn't lying about the HTML. What's actually here is the same thing we had in our HTML file. If we go to the sources, we can see our action.js. So that'll inject our JavaScript script for us to use on this page. So I'm going to put a value like 5 in here. Well, I guess 6 because I fat fingered it. Click fill form. You can see 6, 7, 8 comes back, and we filled out the first two values, 6 and 7. Let me go to form 2. I'm going to, again, click the plugin, open it, hit 2 here, and we pulled back 2, 3, 4, and we put 2 and 4. All right, so it's working how we expect it to work. It's filling the values that we've told it about, but how would we get put in the next values and then update our extension? So let's flip back over to the code, and we're going to do the city here. So this is var city equals document dot query selector, and I'm using Visual Studio Code here because it's free, but you can use whatever you want to edit these files. You can use Notepad even. So we're going to say name equals city, and then we're going to do fill field, and we want the third value, so we want 2 because it's 0 based. And I'm gonna do the same thing here for form 2 to basically make this available. So we want 1 in here, we want field 2, and we're gonna do a query selector like this. And I'm pretty sure I remember that it was an ARIA value, and it should have been field 2. Let's just double check what that one was. So if we click here, hit F12, sorry, I guess I didn't need to hit F12. So we got ARIA label, sorry. ARIA label. Okay, so now our code's technically right. So if we go back to Chrome, let's go back to this extension window, and we're just gonna click update here. Now if I go back to the plugins, I'm just gonna hide that for now. I gotta do test form filter, I'll do 10 here, and it filled out the 10 there, and then it stopped. Let's check right here if we do it again. And give it a fresh form, and it's only filling out the first one there. Let's try this one here. So if we do it, so we got the first 2. So it didn't actually load everything like we wanted. Let's double check what's going on here. Oh, that will be a problem. When I copy and paste, I copy and pasted wrong. Let's try to update our plugin one more time. Extensions updated. Let's go ahead and then do the test form filter. I'll just put 1 in here. It says something went wrong, cannot read query selector. Did I spell it wrong? Oh, that's the problem. Document is not a thing. Let's do it one more time here. So we got 3, 4, 5 there. And we got 56, 57, 58. So our form's working. So this isn't super useful though, because all this is doing is passing us back all the numbers. It fills all the fields on both forms, and it does it pretty quickly. What we want to do now is we want to do it with an actual API. Let me flip back over here, and I made another API endpoint that will return a book. It's always going to be the Cat in the Hat with Dr. Seuss, and hopefully I spelled Seuss right. But this is the API we want to hit to show how this works with a JSON object being returned from your API. So again, we're going to flip back over to our values, and I'm going to update it with just this code here. I already had it sitting there. So now we don't really need to pass the value. It's not going to do anything, but that's fine. And then I'm going to remove this fill forms. I'm just going to comment it out for now. And I'm going to rename this fill forms 2. So the only thing different on this is that, so now rather than doing data 0, we're actually using data properties. So if we show the API here, I'm just going to grab this value and I'll bring it over here. So I'm just going to comment this out super quick, but this is just so you can read it. We're going to take, data is going to end up looking like this, and we're just going to take the title off here to put it in the full name. And my fields weren't really made for this data in mind, so obviously do something better names when you're doing them. We can actually switch these here. So if we do title, and just ignore that field is wrong. And we want the second one to be author. And then down here we have pages, and we'll just leave field 1 and field 3 alone because that's actually right. We updated that. We're now using properties rather than using a value off of that. And we're just going to go test that super quick. So if we come back to our extensions, let's update that. And I'll just show you how to get there again another way. So if you go to manage extensions here, once you click on this puzzle piece, you can just click on update. I just leave that tab open. It's easier to go back to. So now if we click on our extension here, I'm not going to put in a value anymore. I don't need one. But you can see now we got the Cat in the Hat and Dr. Seuss. If you do that again, It looks like we got some leftover data coming through. So let me see. Oops, did not mean to do that. Dr. Seuss. Oh yeah, that's right. 48 was how many pages I set up in this book. Um, so yeah, that was my fault. I thought I was getting something weird there, but that's actually the value that we want to see there. So this extension is working as intended right now. We can do better. We can honestly do better. Let's go back to our code really quick. I don't like all the repetition. It's good. It's not great. But what we can do is we can write a function like this that we basically pass a selector to, and then we pass what property we want to fill it out with, and then I'm going to name this 1 and 2, just so that in the link that you guys see, you'll be able to go back and look at those if you want to see those examples. But so now what we'll do is we'll come in and we'll do fill forms. For the first field, we're going to look for this query selector. We're going to do this title. It's going to basically execute that selector, grab the value, put it in field, and then pass the value that we told it to send. And then we're still going to call this fill field and say if that field doesn't exist, just ignore it. Otherwise, fill that value out. So this is pretty good. There's a lot less repetition here. So let's just take a look at what happens now. So if we go back to extensions, we click update, we come back, let's get 2 clean forms, and we just pass our values. We get all 3 fields filled out. And again, we click it and we get all 3 fields filled out. It's pretty simple and it gives you good access to websites. So if we had 5 other websites, we could obviously go figure out what the field values are. All we'd have to do is figure out what selectors we need, and then we could keep doing those same 3 fields over and over again. So hopefully you got some value out of this video. If you did, please give it a like. If you guys want to see more videos like this, please let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.